Hi guys, today we will focus on multiplying and dividing fractions and mixed numbers. So as always, please make sure you are following along with this video and taking notes of the examples and the key concepts on your paper. And today's goal is to understand the steps to successfully multiply and divide fractions and mixed numbers. So hopefully at the end you can check off that goal and you will have the steps to be successful in that. All right, we are going to start off with using models to multiply fractions. So you might be familiar with this looking something like area, which is something you are familiar with, finding the area of a figure. So if I had a square to create this model, or it looks more like a rectangle, and I am multiplying two fractions, let's name them as 1/2 and 2/3. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide based on each of these sections. So if I'm dividing this into 2/3, I am going to split this figure into 1, 2, and 3. And I'm just going to give you this color, so you know that that is that one. And I'm going to shade 2 out of 3 of those, right? And that is done. And now I'm going to represent the 1/2 with green. And I am going to divide this into 1/2. And I'm going to shade 1 out of 2 of those. So I'm going to shade. And the answer to this would be your overlapping colors. So I'm going to write that. Answer is overlapping section of your model. So I'm going to find the section of this model that is shaded with both green and blue. And when I look, it looks like it is this part right here. And that looks like 2 out of 6 parts, which when I reduce that is the same as 1/3. If you look more closely at this, you can see that this would be 1/3, this would be 1/3, and this would be 1/3. Therefore, 2 out of 6 is the same as 1/3. And in the next slide, I'm going to show you how that is the same as just using the rules to multiply as well. So one way you can multiply fractions is by using models. You would draw each part of the model and then your answer would be the overlapping section of your model. So there is one strategy you can use. All right, our next strategy is just multiplying straight across. Multiplying fractions is definitely a lot easier in my opinion than adding or subtracting them because you do not need a common denominator. There is no common denominator necessary. All you have to do is multiply straight across. So it is very, very simple. So let me give you an example. Let's say I had the fraction of 4/9 and I was multiplying that by 3/4. Let's just make this simple. All you're going to have to do is you multiply straight across and that is it. The only additional step that may come is simplifying. And if you choose to, you can do the simplifying at the beginning by cross simplifying. So looking at your diagonals, see if they have a common factor and simplifying there. I will show you an example of that as well. All right, so I just do 4 times 3, and I know that that equals 12. And then I would do 9 times 4, and I know that that equals 36. Now, I have to simplify this even more. So I think about if 12 and 36 have a common factor. And based on what your knowledge is, you can simplify slowly, or you can go quicker if you can think of a larger common factor. So I know these are both divisible by 12, because I know my 12s well. So I'm just going to divide both the bottom and the top by 12 to simplify this into 12 goes into 12 one time, and 12 goes into 36 3 times. So that is equal to 1/3. I'm going to show you the way to cross simplify if possible as well with the same fraction. So I'm going to show you the same fraction below being multiplied, but with using cross simplifying. So I always, in order to do this, I always look at my diagonals and see if they have a common factor. So in this case, 4 and 4 both have a common factor of 4, or if they're the same number, you can always cancel them to 1. So I'm going to cross this off, and I'm going to turn these both into 1, because when I divide them both by 4, I would get 1. And now I look at my other diagonals, 3 and 9, and I think, do they have a common factor? Yes, I know I can divide them both by 3, so therefore I'm going to cross off 3 because I know 3 divided by 3 is 1, and I'm going to cross off 9 because I know 9 divided by 3 is 3. Make sure when you're simplifying, guys, you have to divide them by the same number. So, for example, those diagonals, I knew 3 went into 3 one time, and 3 goes into 9 3 times. So make sure you're using the same factor so you don't make the mistake there. And now I would use that big idea, just multiply straight across. 1 times 1 is 1, and 3 times 1 is 3. So see how I got the same answer as the one above? I just used a little bit of a different strategy to simplify at the beginning rather than the end. So just now you have that as an option. I suggest this for people with maybe not as great of a number sense, because once the numbers get bigger, typically they're harder to simplify because we maybe don't have the common factors in our head. So that would be my suggestion for you. Now that we've talked about multiplying fractions, let's talk about converting mixed numbers to fractions. So on top of multiplying fractions, we will also be multiplying fractions and mixed numbers. So it's really important for us to know how to convert mixed numbers to fractions so that we can successfully do that. So let's give an example here. What if we were multiplying 1/2 times 2 3/4? Now, we might run into some trouble here because we can't just multiply straight across, obviously, since we have a mixed number. So let's talk about how we convert these mixed numbers to fractions. So a common mistake that people make is they think they can just take off the whole number, multiply by the fraction, and then add the whole number to the end. Unfortunately, that wouldn't be the same, and that isn't a strategy we can use. So I'm going to show you what we actually have to do. So when we're converting a whole number to a fraction, I'm going to show you over here the steps. We are going to first multiply the whole number by the denominator, which is the bottom. And I'm just going to abbreviate since I don't have any more room. So we're going to multiply the whole number by the denominator. So in this case, it would be the 2 times 4, which we know equals 8. Then our second step would be to add the numerator, and we're going to add it to that product. So we are going to take that 8, and we are going to add the 3 more, since that is our top number. Remember, numerator is the top number in case you forgot. And then our final step would be to place that number over the original denominator. And remember, denominator is the bottom. So when we do that math, we know 8 plus 3 is 11. And our final step would put the 11 over our original denominator, which would leave us with 11 over 4. And just in case you're wondering why we do this, since we're talking about the whole number of 4, the whole number of 2 and our denominator is 4, wouldn't you guys agree that 4 over 4 would give me the value of 1? So if we're adding 4 over 4 plus 4 over 4 plus 3 over 4, wouldn't you agree that 4 plus 4 is 8 plus 3 more is 11? And we keep the denominator when we're adding fractions of 4. See how that is the same as this? It just streamlines the process and makes it a little bit quicker. So here, when we are converting this now, we can multiply the 1/2 times 11 over 4 since we solved that as the fraction conversion, and now we multiply straight across. We know 11 times 1 is 11, and we know that 4 times 2 is 8. And now you might be wondering, okay, well, how do we convert this back? All we do now is divide. So when we are simplifying this, we say, how many times does 8 go into 11? We know that it's 1. That means our answer is going to be 1. And how many do we have left over? 8, 9, 10, 11. 1 and 3 eighths. And that would be our solution to that problem. Make sure you have these steps written down so you can use this in the future. All right, let's move on. All right, now we're talking about how do we divide fractions. So let's say we are given 2 fractions. Let's try to think of a few. Let's just say 5/7 divided by 1/2. Let's just say that. So we're given 2 fractions and we're asked to divide. Well, there is this formula right here, keep, change, flip, that will help us streamline this division process into multiplication. So what keep, change, flips tells us to do is it tells us to keep the first, and I'll write these steps on the side over here, keep the first fraction as it is. So no changes need to be made, we just keep that first fraction. Our second step would be change. And what do we change? We change the division to multiplication. And the very last step is flip. And we are going to flip over the fraction to create the reciprocal. What's a reciprocal? It is just the flipped over version of a fraction. All right, so we are going to K. We're going to keep the 5/7 as it is. So right below, I'm going to write that as that. Change, we are going to change from division to multiplication. And flip, we are going to flip this fraction upside down. And now we have set up this problem and we know how to solve it correctly. So we're going to do 5 times 2, which we know is 10, and 7 times 1, which we know is 7. So our answer here is 10 over 7, but remember our top should never be bigger than our bottom. So we're going to simplify this. Remember we do that by dividing. How many times does 7 go into 10? It goes in 1 time, and you're going to have 3 left over. So your answer would be 1 3/7. All right, hopefully now you understand how to divide fractions. All right, now let's move on to dividing fractions and mixed numbers. So just like we had in our previous example with whole mixed numbers, now you should know how to convert. So we are going to go ahead and do that. So let's say we have the example of, let's try to think of one, 2 1/4 divided by 3/8. Now we're still definitely going to use the process of keep, change, flip, but remember the first thing we have to do is we have to convert this mixed number to a fraction, so an improper fraction, so we're going to do that right now. Remember, just like you saw in the previous slide, we take our whole number and we multiply it by the denominator, and then we are going to add the numerator. So 2 times 4 is going to give us 8. And then 8 plus 1 more is going to give us 9. This would convert to, I'm going to show this step. So 2 times 4 equals 8. And then 8 plus 1 equals 9. That would leave us with 9 over 4 divided by 3. 8s. Now that we have this down, we can now use keep, change, flip, and set this up. I'm going to keep the 9/4 as is. I am going to change the division to multiplication, and I am going to flip that last fraction to be 8/3. Now we can go ahead and multiply, and remember, you can choose to simplify at the beginning. When I quickly look at these diagonals, I know that I can simplify. I know 8 and 4 have a common factor of 4. I know 4 divided by 4 gives me 1, and I know 8 divided by 4 gives me 2. And I know 9 and 3 also have the common factor of 3. I know 3 divided by 3 is 1, and I know 9 divided by 3 is 3. So this is going to help save me simplifying in the end. 3 times 2 is 6 over 1, and we know that anything over 1 is just equal to that whole number of 6. There we go. All right, guys, I hope this video helped you understand. Make sure you wrote down all of these examples and the key concepts, and you will be able to reference these notes for future reference to help you be successful. Thanks for watching.